ladies and gentlemen, we're going to listen to Liz Herbert, and she's going to tell you everything, every lesson you can learn at your digital sourcing strategy. A big warm welcome and applause for Liz Herbert.
Goedemorgen. Good morning. I'm not very good at Dutch, but I'm learning with some help. At Forrester, we believe that we are entering an unprecedented era of change. We believe that the next 2 decades, 20 years, will be characterized by a fast pace of disruption as companies struggle to serve, win, and retain customers. And we believe that digital business is the key way that those companies will execute on these strategies. We already are living in this world. In fact, some of us, this may be in the near future. For others of us, this may be today. We see smart healthcare devices, perhaps wearables or chips, that are constantly monitoring our health, reporting information back to the doctors, the hospitals. We will brush our teeth with a smart toothbrush, capturing all the data and sending that back to our healthcare providers and doctors. When we need to order new groceries, we'll have touch screens on our refrigerators. In fact, in the future, these smart refrigerators may even order their own groceries. We'll pay for these on our mobile banking through our mobiles. Many of us already do today. We'll drive to work or to meetings like this in a smart car. In fact, in the future, the cars will drive us. We'll adjust the temperature, set the security on our connected homes, and maybe we'll even have a smart 3D printer making our dinner when we get home. Tasty. But for companies to compete in this environment, we see a significant shift underway. And what we believe at Forrester is that this digital disruption is impacting every industry in every geography. We've recently completed research to find out, do companies see the disruption happening in their industry as moderate or perhaps massive? And what was interesting in this research is that every industry that we looked at showed a very strong disruption. The executives that we spoke with believe that they will be disrupted. Of course, some more so than others. You see media as an industry where they believe there's massive disruption, and we all experience that in our daily lives. We consume newspapers on iPads in many cases, although not Rob this morning, of course. And we also see that there are new challenges. As much as there are new opportunities, a lot of this is threatening established businesses like your own. The pace of change, the speed, is at a pace that we have not seen before. And when we talk to clients and when we do our research at Forrester, what we're finding is that this pace of change and the new skills that are required create new challenges for sourcing strategy. One of the most significant challenges that we're finding is the ability to find the right talent. In a recent study that we completed at Forrester, we found 2 particular areas where there's a very difficult time finding skills. First is creative, design, user experience. How will you find the right resources that understand the customer journey, that can make sure your technology is not just automation, not just robots, but it's something that really drives forward that customer experience. The second skill that we see a shortage in is the data scientist. We live in a world where there's more data than ever. Everything from our watches to our cars to our homes are generating data that leading corporations are using to be able to drive new solutions, drive new products. And this means that companies are more and more looking for data scientists. But again, this can be a big gap and a big challenge for companies to find the right skills there. So what have we identified that companies should do? As Rob and team mentioned this morning, at Forrester, we've come up with 5 key changes that sourcing executives must make to be able to thrive in this new economy. And what we see is that the gap between business and IT is, in fact, threatened even further in this era. Because a lot of times, IT, or the nerds, as we heard them called, they're busy planning, they're busy architecting. But in this new era, in this era where customers are powerful and where digital business is the new way, we see that business cannot wait. In many cases, the business is running ahead. Every day I talk to clients where business has gone out and bought their own mobile technologies, they're using software as a service, and they're doing this without IT, creating new challenges for sourcing strategy. It's no longer the old model of working with just the biggest suppliers and tiering, but it's the new model of working with the business and being able to move at a very fast pace of change and adapting sourcing strategy to fit that. So what are the 5 key steps that we've identified at Forrester for sourcing executives to evolve and to become a critical part of this new world, the digital business world? The first step that we see is to get involved earlier in the process. Leading business executives, for example, chief marketing officers, chief digital officers, more and more they're engaging in a new way of thinking. They're conducting design thinking sessions. They're doing customer journey mapping, where they can enter a more creative, collaborative environment, sometimes with their employees and partners. What we see for sourcing is that they need to be involved earlier, to be participants in these design thinking sessions, not involved later after the fact once this executive team has decided the new strategy. So this is the first step that we see in the journey, is participating earlier on in some of these more free-form, creative design thinking sessions. The second major change that we see with sourcing, and we heard a little bit about it earlier today, is that sourcing must change the way that they evaluate vendors. In fact, in digital business, many of our clients are moving away from RFPs. More and more, they're selecting vendors based on trials or proofs of concept, where they can start to work with a vendor little by little and then expand out as they get some success. What this means for sourcing is that the old way of thinking about RFPs as primarily cost and risk reducing has to change. More and more, we see that the leading sourcing departments are starting to think about business value, and they're making this a critical part of the selection. Although some of these technologies may not be the least expensive, they will be the ones that drive the business forward the most. And this is a key shift that we see in the thinking and in the tools, the scorecards, the RFI and RFP processes that are happening at companies. It's a new way of thinking for most of the sourcing execs that I work with at Forrester. Third, we see that there's a hunger for KPIs, for analytics, for benchmarks. If I'm a bank, what % of my customers should be accessing on a mobile device? What might be the business potential for us to roll out a new mobile banking feature? In many cases, there is data and analytics available to help guide your journey. There are more and more cloud communities where you can get your peers' information. Sometimes you give your information to get that back. And we see that one of the new roles for sourcing is to tap into this expertise, to this analytics, and start to give that information to the business. Help them understand what is possible in the world of digital business. Be a resource to them, because many of them don't have the right relationships or access to data to make that happen. Fourth, one of the most critical tasks for sourcing is to find the right partners. What we see here, too, is a major change. There are new partners that sourcing executives are starting to work with on the journey to becoming a digital business. More and more, we're seeing that sourcing will work with agencies, digital boutiques, new types of providers that they may have not had a relationship with in the past. Likely, the marketing department had relationships with some of these, but more and more we're seeing that the nerds, the sourcing, and the IT professionals are also working with these kinds of providers. And one of the biggest challenges we see here for sourcing is that the provider landscape is changing rapidly. Agencies are investing in technology skills. Your classic technology providers like Accenture, PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, they're acquiring and investing aggressively so that they can become digital partners. One notable acquisition, Accenture bought Acuity in the last 12 months. And this we see is a convergence of the true creative agency with the leading IT services capabilities that are out there. So for sourcing, it's a new landscape, it's new types of partners, or some of your existing partners are changing color. And then finally, what we see as a key task for sourcing is to help scale the right partnerships. Most of the organizations that I work with who are becoming digital businesses, they're working with dozens and dozens of small startup partners. Maybe a company that makes sensors to go in your connected car. Maybe a small cloud computing vendor that offers a specialized niche technology for retail. What we hear from clients is that in this journey to digital business, the vendor landscape is fragmented, and it's moving quickly. This means that one of the ways sourcing can help is on an ongoing basis, reevaluate the partnerships that exist. Some of those may have come in through the business, and help the business to scale the most strategic and most meaningful ones as you work with a new tier of key partners, key strategic technology and services partners. So those are some of the key areas that we see sourcing needs to change. And for a lot of the clients that we're working with, these are significant shifts. Getting involved in design thinking, becoming more of a resource in terms of providing data and analytics, working with new kinds of partners. Major changes. Some of the organizations that I work with, in fact, spin up a separate sourcing group that will be focused entirely on digital sourcing and more equipped to deal with this fast pace of change. So what else does this mean for sourcing? We are seeing new ways of pricing, new ways of contracting, new models as companies engage with these new digital partners. A warning, some of these ideas are very far in the future. They might seem a bit strange, but we're starting to see examples of them in practice. The first model, and many of you are already embarking on this journey, is the idea of becoming a broker, becoming an orchestrator. Sourcing has a key role to play as corporations roll out their application stores, as they roll out their mobile stores or their cloud stores. And we see examples of this already. For example, in Britain, we see that the government has already moved to a cloud store that's been very successful for them. But for a lot of sourcing professionals, this is a new way of thinking. And so this type of engaging will drive new partnerships, new goals, new ways of working. Perhaps a bit further into the future, but again, something that we see a few examples of today, is the idea of collaborating with your customers, with your partners, and with your employees in new ways. This morning, we heard a lot about collaboration. What we see at leading corporations who are really pioneering these new models is they're in fact engaging in crowdsourcing. They're getting ideas from their broad network of partners and customers. That might seem very in the future, but there are a couple of examples of this today. For example, NASA, the space agency in the US, they've been crowdsourcing everything from spacesuit design to new technologies. In fact, at NASA, with the increasing use of video and with more photos, they found that their email system could no longer handle the volume and the type of media that they were dealing with. How did they get a solution? They did this by crowdsourcing. And so this is a new way that they are starting to get not only ideas, but designers and developers. And we see this in France as well. Some of you may bank with Crédit Agricole or may have worked with them. They as well are starting to develop and design some of their mobile experience with their customers. So in this particular case, they not only use crowdsourcing ideas from customers who can vote and give information about what kinds of apps they're looking for, but they also are using a crowdsource models for developers. The developers essentially compete to build the apps in that store. Closely related to crowdsourcing, we're seeing more and more gamification. How can companies make contests for their developers, for their business units, and start to incentivize their partners and their employees in new ways? Again, a technology that we're starting to see emerge in some corporations. We're seeing more and more pre-built IP. Of course, this is not a new idea, but in the digital business economy, we're seeing more and more of this pre-built IP become a reality. For example, Bearing Point has a pre-built media solution that out of the box comes with some of the necessary practices for becoming a digital media company. Another example is from a startup that's backed by IBM, where they've got a pre-built solution for retailers, which comes with facial recognition, in-store social experience, and other technologies that help a retailer evolve into the new era of digital business in the store, not just online. And finally, we see that the contracts are changing. Of course, the idea of business outcome contracting is not new. But as companies rush to become digital businesses, we're seeing more and more examples of this. Paying for conversions at an auto insurance company. Paying for the pizzas that are delivered within a leading restaurant chain. Paying for donations at a not-for-profit. These are all examples where the payment to their partners, Deloitte, Mutual Mobile, TCS, are directly linked to the business outcome, to the business goals they're trying to achieve, which incentivizes innovation and the right delivery from the partners. So I hope this has given you some ideas in terms of how sourcing is evolving. To summarize, what we see is that sourcing plays a key role in creating the path forward, in enabling the business to take the right risks, to find the right ways of failing and learning. As we heard, it's similar to parenting, and to engage with these new providers in new leading-edge models. So, dank u wel for your attention this morning. I'll be around later at a round table towards the end of the day, or please feel free to email me. Thank you.